Hello, welcome to the Commando cast. I'm Symbio.
And I'm Andrew, and today we're talking about things that Destiny needs and a few that it probably doesn't. All right, guys, so we have a special and hopefully recurring guest with us today. So this is Symbio. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, Symbio, for those who don't know, who are probably very few people out there.
Yeah, what's up, you guys? Glad to be here. Honored to hang out with Andrew here with the Dice Commando. Moved up to Portland, and if you don't know T3, we do YouTube videos in real life. We're combining forces here to create the largest weaponized IRL in the history of the universe.
We're coming for you, Monk.
That's right. That's right, Monk. Be on the lookout. He's actually maybe coming up to the ETX, so we'll have to.
Nice.
Anyway, so a little bit about me. I've been playing Star Wars Destiny since the very beginning. Got hooked on it since Team Covenant did the reveal. Me and my son fell in love with the game, and pretty much the rest is history. The YouTube channel, we've been focused on doing in real life games, focusing on a mixture of casual and some competitive. Really trying to always be good at telling people what the cards do to help the newer players out there. I love this game, and I'm really excited to be in this community because there's so many places to play. So Portland's Destiny community has been really nice and very welcoming. So
yeah, it's a great community. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I think it's a great community. So
it is. So what else? Definitely check us out on T3 if you don't know. We're gonna keep doing in real life videos and try to do every once in a while like unboxings and sometimes strategy videos.
Yeah, great. So today's main topic is we got together and kind of brainstormed some things. There's been a lot of talk out there about where Destiny is right now, and I think there's a lot of people who are kind of unhappy with it, which, granted, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that different than, I guess, normal. But the last week we talked about the villain-hero divide. There's a lot of talk on Snoke and some other very powerful things. So we kind of put our heads together and started thinking about if we were designers, what would we bring to the table, or where do we think we could go? But first, let's talk about our week in Destiny. So what'd you do this week?
Yeah, so, Andrew was busy doing something, so he asked me if I would help officiate the tournament over at Gongai. We did a standard tournament, and one thing I love about the area is there's usually at least 10 players at every game that we go to. So we had about 10 players. We did 4 rounds, and I played a Elite Yoda Double Marauders deck. I posted it on SW Destiny DB. And this is what was my first iteration. So the whole idea, of course, was getting the entourage. And
sure.
Hired Muscle just came out because of Allies of, what is it called?
Allies of Necessity.
It is Allies of Necessity, right? Yeah, so that's the draft kit. And it did pretty well.
Are you playing Fickle in there as well?
Yeah, I'm playing Fickle, double entourage. Just making tons of resources as much as you can with Yoda, and it has a lot of mitigation. I actually, in that iteration, I included 2 Forsaken. I didn't have the Vader's Fist at the time.
Oh, I see. So Forsaken was your tech card. Interesting.
Right, because the Marauder, Emphy's Nest Marauder allow you to bring 1 villain or 1 hero, depending on which faction you play it with. So I decided to do the Forsaken just because I wanted a lot of mitigation so I could ramp as much as I could. But the person that won was actually Enzo. So shout out to Enzo. He played Yoda Leia with the Astro. What is it called?
Astrogation
plot.
Yeah, so Astrogation, what it does, we'll show it here, of course, but what it does is when you play an upgrade, you may exhaust the plot and spot a blue character, so you do have to have Yoda alive to do it to mill a card. Previously, that deck was running either Fortify, which would give you a shield, or it was running Taking Ground to help you win the roll-off in the feed. Let's roll off, and whoever wins the roll-off wins meta, right? So
exactly, and that deck is still very strong. If anybody thought that maybe that deck would go away in this meta, they're totally wrong with the...
What battlefield was he running? Was he on Occupied City?
I don't think he was. I think
Command Center then?
Yeah, I think it might have been Command Center. I have to double check. The video is up, so you can check that out. We also had a Kylo Dooku. Daniel was running the Kylo Dooku, which is
very good player. Yeah.
Yeah, and great to see that just take fold after the new release of Dooku. Dooku's very powerful. He's a little squishy, I'd say.
He's more than a little squishy.
Yeah, like, I mean, if he had like 10 or 11, that would really push him over to the edge. But the fact that he has 9 makes him pretty easy to kill, you know.
Yeah, 21 points on a 2-character team seems pretty squishy. And that was actually our viewer question last week, so thank you for those that did answer. We got some very good answers, so that is much appreciated.
But yeah, the mill deck won. There's also a Padme Saw, which was Sarah's deck, and a couple Palpatines still. We didn't have any Phasmas, and we didn't have any other mill variants, which I know there's a lot of different mill variants going on, like the villain mill and the hero, the 6 die.
So it was mostly villain decks and then hero mill, right?
Yeah.
So pretty much right on par with, I think, what we've been seeing kind of across the board.
Oh, and Keith did bring the Mace Satine deck, which he went. I think he got second or third place with that deck, actually.
That's right.
So, congrats. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. It was good to see a variation, but still, similar builds. I feel like the meta's changing a little bit from the original conversions.
Sure. Well, I mean, now that Ally's in again, we were pretty sure everyone was just kind of holding off on those 3 wides until it hit. So, and which brings us to Monday Night Dice on Monday, obviously. So, to that, I brought Vader Droid Retribution, Battle Droid Retribution. The reason I did that is because I was expecting a lot of 3 wides and I wanted to go to down. So I did end up winning that tournament. There's not a lot to say there except that Fear and Dead Men, I ran 2 Fear and Dead Men, and I also ran 2 Sudden Impact, which I'll show. That does a lot of damage. Poor Nathaniel felt my wrath. He took, I think he took a Sudden Impact and then a Fear and Dead Men, I think, by round 2. So he was playing Shadowcaster Reset, and that's pretty much all she wrote, right? So
I think you were done with your games pretty much in like 10 minutes. Every time I looked up, Andrew was done. I was like, okay, this is bringing the Vader back into the metas. I wanted to see it, and it's good to see that it actually is still good.
Yeah. So if you watch the cast, you know I'm not a huge fan of Vader, but I wanted to kind of prove that he was good because we haven't really seen him much, and I think that's been proven. I do want to say that I was already planning on, so Agent of Zion had posted his article to the Facebook page that morning. I was already planning on, and to be clear, it was his article talking about the player from Seattle who did well at the Denver GQ, who also played at Portland Regional, very good player.
I think her name was Cheshire from Cloud City Rollers.
Right. So, so shout out to the Cloud City guys and Cheshire. But anyway, so he had posted it that morning, and I was like, dang it, somebody stole my thunder. Because I was planning on bringing it that night anyway.
Well, I think a lot of people were kind of waiting to release their Vaders because nobody wanted to bring Vader back.
I mean, you want to go in a 3-wide meta, right?
Yeah, and you want to play around with the new stuff,
Yeah. So, and then you brought the same deck, but with some tweaks, right?
I did, yeah. I threw in 2 Scruffies, which have been awesome. Like, Scruffy-looking Nerf Herder right now is a key card, except you got to play it at the right time.
Well...
Symbio here plays it first turn on an armored reinforcement, so you can look out for that and laugh. But yeah,
you did?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
I did.
Sucks.
I know. It was the first. I was just, I don't know, nervous, whatever. But anyway, I put the 1 fist in there instead of 2. I'm not sure if I want to put 2 because of the just the Flames of the Past. And also, you got your entourage.
And you only get 2 villain cards. So,
yeah, exactly. But I went 3-1 with that deck. There was a really clutch game. We're not going to say which game it is, but it is on Dice Commando, so you should check it out.
Yep. It'll go up the day after this video.
Yep. But that was a lot of fun. I've been really happy with that deck because, you know me, I've been playing around with the blue heroes and really not doing very well. I played Mace Satine and didn't do very well with that either. So it was nice to do at least better than 2-2 with the deck. And, I love Yoda.
So you went 3-1 on the night?
I went 3-1 on the night and then 3-1 at Gone Guy. So I was pretty happy with that.
Nice. That's a pretty good showing for the weekend. Yeah, you got to be happy with that. All right, so let's move into our main topic. So again, what we wanted to talk about was some ideas we had of type of mechanics, for lack of a better word, that we wanted to bring to, or that we think Destiny would benefit from seeing right now. We do want to be clear about something. So when we did this huddle in the pre-talk, we actually made card images because this is a visual cast, a video cast, so we wanted to kind of enhance that. These are not dream cards. This is not a dream card episode, so that's not what we're going. So some of these cards you may see that are imbalanced or whatever. What we're just trying to do is get the point across. It may not be worded correctly. For those rules lawyers out there that love picking people apart, go to town, but that's not the point. So we just want to be very clear about that. So, for example, the first one we have, actually I want to give a shout out. So credit to Steven Johnson. So he had actually posted this and it was like a huge thread. I mean, it got tons of love.
Yeah,
it was early January this year in the Star Wars Destiny main Facebook page.
This is before the actual plot was released, or
that's true. Yeah,
way before.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah. So we're showing it right now. But what he had essentially came up with was the concept of a team up card, which I believe they're actually doing in Pokemon right now. Don't they have like a team up expansion or something like that?
Yeah, they've been doing that in Pokemon for a while, like dual color cards, basically, like even blue and yellow characters merged into one.
I see.
So this is all mono blue, but you could do different characters too.
Right. Okay, well, so yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge Pokemon guy, but I knew they'd been doing the team up. Anyway, the point where I'm going with the dream card is Steven took a lot of flack online about this being imbalanced or not proper or whatever. And I think a lot of people were missing the point, right? This is, I think, is a really good idea of a mechanic. And whether it serves as a starting point for like even like a hero mode or something like that, or like a single player, whatever, I think this is a really cool mechanic because you could essentially roll in 4 dice with your big character, which is one of the problems we've seen with like solo palp, right? Is it's just too few health. You get your dice removed and you're done, right? So what do you think about something like this?
I thought it was really interesting, and props to Steven for being creative, thinking outside the box. I think that's part of the fun part of being a Destiny player, is not just taking everything as it is, but also exploring different game mechanics. Like, not necessarily saying the game has to have these, but how can we maybe get creative and use this game in different ways? One thing I did really like is I've been looking for a way to maybe play multiplayer faster. And, do you remember when they came out with, somebody come up with that format called Solo Destiny?
Right. Solo mode.
Solo mode.
Yeah. We broke that up here, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Kylo was terrible. I mean, it was obviously not good for that format. Yeah. You guys can check that out, look Solo mode. But basically, the idea was that you'd have, like, cards, you'd have one character. And I think that in multiplayer, like this kind of format, you can have one kind of key card and bring it to a multiplayer 4-person tournament, and it would play a lot faster. So I like that idea behind it. I think
it's just
that
a battle brawl, basically. Then.
Yeah, exactly. Right now with multiplayer, it just takes too long. You have to wait for 3 people to get through their 3 potential characters.
I see.
I think it tends to be a little slow for what multiplayer is.
But then it does make it more social, which is also multiplayer, right? So, I mean...
That's true, yeah.
But no, yeah. I see what you're saying. I agree, yeah.
But so in this situation, like, would there be 4 dice, right?
I think that's the idea, is that you can play each one of them elite.
Right, and you'd have 4 cards. Like, it'd be a legendary. You'd still pull 1 die at a time.
Yeah, and I mean,
it would be hard.
I don't know what the rules would be like. Can you only have 3 upgrades? Can you have 6 upgrades? Like, I mean, again, let's not go down the rabbit hole, right?
Sure.
I just thought this was really creative, and I just wanted to use this as our starting example because it was a really good idea. Like you said, it was out of the box. It's a kind of a mechanic that I think could, 18 expansions down the line, maybe make its way into the game.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right, so the next, or the first plot that, or the first one that we have is just a 1-cost plot. It bothers me to no end that there's not very many 1-cost plots in this game.
I agree.
And it is always...
So many times you've got the 29 points.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it has always bothered me that the villains have retribution and the heroes don't have a counter. So again, I'm not saying this is the dream card, right? But what I'd like to see is a plot that is essentially the anti-retribution. So that's what I came up here, is instead of doing a damage, it's very hero-oriented. Just give a character a shield instead, right? Just gives you a little something back. Right now, hero big little is basically non-existent. I suppose you could make that argument that Qui-Gon
is the closest to a big little, because
right?
He's the only one who can tank out like that. But
although I was thinking about this, do we have any 20-point hero characters right now?
In the actual Convergence, I don't think so. Like, Mace was gone. Mace is gone. The original Mace was gone. Yeah, we don't.
19 is
Obi-Wan. Yep.
So,
yep.
I mean, okay, so this, again, wouldn't necessarily work for today, but I'd like to see a counter to retribution. And then in the theme of 1-cost plots, so both Symbio and I kind of independently came up with this idea. So this is what we're showing here is essentially a 1-cost plot that lets us expand our deck size. And do you think 4 is the right number? I know you and I were talking about that.
I actually thought about 4 too. So the idea behind this is that right now in Destiny, you can only have 30 cards. And I know there have been a lot of different podcasts talking about whether it should have 40 cards for the mill factor, but also because there are just so many cards in each set, 160 cards, right? So when you have that many choices, you feel like you're really stuck with, 30 cards. There's not a lot of options to tech in there. So being able to put a plot gives you the addition of being, without changing game mechanics, they can quickly change a game mechanic, without having to change the entire thing, right? I think 4 is a good number where it's not like if you add too many, you're adding too many options and maybe it's a little more too powerful. And I was going to ask you, do you think it would be better to have like 4 of the only, like, you can't include the same cards?
So four different cards, up to 1 copy of 4 different cards. Yeah, you'd have to be careful with how you worded it, I suppose, to not make the questions come up. Can you end up with 3 copies of something, right?
But you don't want mill to be super powerful, and I feel right now, especially in Infinite and even Trilogy maybe is with Lando Leia. I mean, mill is pretty close to up there.
Lando Leia are both out of the post.
Oh, that's right. That's not Trilogy. That would be Convergence. So.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, I mean, I think that you need something to help a little bit to deal with mill like that right now.
I think so. I think so. I know that a lot of mill players are frustrated right now because they feel that there's bad matchups out there. But I'm sorry, you can't win 100% of your matches.
And I'm not a mill hater. I think mill is an important part of the game. I don't
keeps a lot of things in check.
It does, and having your characters live the whole game can be really a good game mechanic where you can potentially kill your opponent. But when you can't do anything, for 2 turns because all your cards are gone, that's not fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, so again, we don't know whether it was I was going back and forth on 4 or 2. The reason I actually ended up deciding on 4 was because running 4 actually starts to hurt you because you start to exponentially lose your statistics of getting what you want in your starting hand, right? So
that could be really painful to have 1-ofs in there too, because then your consistency goes down even further.
So that could be an interesting penalty. Maybe in that case you'd go 5, but they'll have to be 1 copy or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Now I don't know if 1 is the right cost for that. That's a pretty powerful effect for 1.
Yeah. So maybe 1 and 2.
But definitely the idea, I think, is something they should explore. I think that would be very helpful and I think fun for us as Destiny players to try out different things.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, so this next one, this is yours. So why don't you read or just speak to it?
Yeah, and again, we didn't, these were just ideas. So these cards aren't actual things that were we've rules lawyered to death, and we just came up with names for them. We just figured to call it Fortitude again to deal with some of the mill stuff, and I feel like we've lost Ancient Lightsaber, Chance Cube. We have Vambraces, and we have sort of Jedi Holocron, but Jedi Holocron is so inconsistent to try to save the card in your deck. There's At Odds, which allows you to go back in the deck. But there's not a lot right now that kind of helps protect you from mill. So I feel like if you have the 2 cards in your deck, that would be similar to what Across the Galaxy had. There were a bunch of cards like Galactic Deception, Relentless.
Vigilance.
Yep, Vigilance, where basically if you drew it and you played it that turn, at the end of the action phase, the card would go away, so it only lasts 1 turn. So I thought it would be good to have something that protects you from mill. So in this example, it said your opponents cannot discard cards from your hand or deck. Now, another alternate version we talked about was that instead of not being able to mill at all, what if you did damage to that character from per milled card? So if they milled 10 cards off you, you get to do 10 indirect damage or something.
Yeah, I think this concept is fantastic. I really liked your application of it to the vigilance type thread that they had established in the last set. I think this is fantastic. I could very well see this being printed.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool. Now, did any of those cards see play, really? I mean...
I guess Stifle doesn't technically fit into that.
No?
Well, the one that's seeing play now is the one that lets you resolve your indirect as ranged, right? The one with Saw Padme.
Right. Not...
I'll put it up. I forget the name now. Oh, on the Mark is the name.
On the Mark. So that's the one that it does get discarded.
And that's actually out of the new
set.
So that is a mechanic they've continued to do, which is play it. So it's a support you play, gets discarded at the end of the round, right? So we've actually considered to continue to see that mechanic. So
I actually really like that mechanic, but I think it's hard to use in the current format. One of them is you can't give shields. I feel like it needs to be more wider in scope, something that can be easy to play, and definitely should be 0 in those cases, I think.
It'd be interesting on those cards if maybe they were a little harder to get into play and then they essentially had an upkeep, right? Like you could pay 1 at the end of the round to keep it in play or something like that.
Kind of like the frag grenade, that one that was from Empire War.
But then because you get your 2 resources at the beginning of the turn, maybe it would have to like cost 3 or something. I don't know.
It could be powerful. Yeah.
Don't want to go down the rabbit hole, right? We're not talking about balance.
Great art, though. You should do art cards. You're picking great art for these, man.
All right. And then the next subject we talked about, we don't have any specific visuals for these, but again, we're both, I think, kind of stuck on Blue Hero. Just stinks.
Surprise.
Like,
yeah, I love Blue Hero.
So I've been pretty vocal that I think that in order for Blue Hero to come back, the first starting point is a 2-cost Hero Saber. Like they need something to bring them on par. Like right now, Villain has so many options.
Yeah,
they need at least one, if not another. I'd love to see them have another blue cost with.
I mean, they got a Dooku Saber for 2 released, right?
Which is an amazing
They got
card.
Palpatine Saber for 2. I mean, I'm not trying to gripe just because I'm a hero player, but like there's some clear villain. There's a lot of villain power right now.
A lot of villain. Yeah.
So we definitely, I think Blue Hero definitely had its heyday with Rey Ayla and Stairs, and but I feel like Blue Hero should always be up there, because it's such a key component of the world.
Blue Hero is what Red Hero used to be.
Right? Yeah, true, very true.
Kind of there, but not quite.
Sad.
And then card we've both spoken about before, but the card you want to see reprinted to make Blue Hero great again is what?
Is Riposte.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean Riposte, if you don't know, is Awakening's card, right?
Yep.
And essentially it said that remove any number of your shields, and I think Andrew will put it up here, to do that much damage to a character. So basically right now we have a situation where we've got Cereso Training, Cereso Mastery, Circle of Shelter, we've got Qui-Gon, we've got all these great shield mechanics, but I've played it, you've played it.
You can't do any damage.
It's like you can live for a long time, but if you don't win the game through damage, other than mill, and that's where Hero maybe sort of is doing well right now, is just mill.
Great.
Right? But you need something that does damage, and one thing I talked about with you is let's put the move event on the reprint of Riposte. And
that's
that way, you can have it in your lightsaber mastery. I just think more move events.
Fatal Blow and Riposte together.
Yeah,
right? Nice.
Yeah. It would be very powerful. You could have the Taro Strike and then Riposte. And I don't know, maybe you could, especially with that heightened awareness card, you could do some fun stuff with that.
Yeah. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too cheap of a shot with us basically calling for reprints. But, we need
one reprint, I feel if they reprinted Probe, come on.
I mean, actually, that's a fair point. Probe's pretty darn good.
Or Close Quarters Assault's another one that's like...
No, that one needs to stay away. that one, I'm okay. That one needs to go away.
I mean, we have heroes have really, literally, barely any hand control right now.
It was Dooku. If CQA was out right now, it'd be Dooku
it should be Hero.
Kylo, right?
Yeah.
So... All right, so what I'm showing now is a pair of cards. And again, I want to be very clear. We're not going down the rat hole with what's balanced and what's not. But one of the things that kind of bothers me, and I want to be clear, I was actually talking to Lucas Litzinger when he was up here in Portland for the GQ a year ago. I was kind of joking with him about this. But what I want to see is I want to see a Boba Fett, or I was saying I wanted to see a Boba Fett with a plot that could pull his rifle. And the reason I want to say that, and that's what I've decided to show here, is because I feel that like the single character is like a really cool, like when Palpatine came out, like that was really cool. Like you play your one guy, he's a scary beast, you sit down across from him, you're on a clock, right? However, these two character, like a big guy with 2 character die is just like you just get eaten alive because of the removal, right?
Unless you're Vader, which is the only reason he's viable is because he can roll him in, right?
No, I mean that's a fair point. But I think that what would be cool is if we could have a plot associated with one of those big characters that let them start with an extra die. So that's really what I have here is Armed and Dangerous would let him pull the rifle, which I didn't even waste the time to make the rifle because I think you guys get the concept, right? But, you could do this with like somebody pulling their lightsaber or, whatever it would be. Han pulling his blaster, Chewie pulling his, I don't know why you would have solo Chewie, but I mean,
I love it.
Same type of thing, right?
It's basically an armored reinforcement for a unique weapon, maybe.
Yeah,
like
except that you wouldn't necessarily have to pay for it. Like, I'd want it to be free, and I think that's where my head starts getting kind of in the, oh, maybe this is broken place, is because, let's say that his blaster is a 3-cost blaster, right?
Yeah.
You can now overwrite that. So maybe the blaster would have to say cannot be overrode or something like that.
Maybe it wouldn't be free. Like, you could get discounted by 1 or 2 or something. But I see what you mean. You want the character to come with the weapon.
I want the character. Yeah, well, I want the character to have a 3-dice dart.
Yeah.
Right, so that he's not just completely crippled from the get-go.
I think they just need to balance the weapon, maybe, so that the weapon isn't uber powerful,
Yeah, sure. It'd be like a 1, 2 plus 2 or something.
This gets me really excited, though, Andrew. I love this idea of having, because in the game we're gonna reprint Boba Fett so many times, right? Because they're iconic characters. But what if you had like these one die, or like the Palp from SOR? It's like the big beefy character version of them, and then it could go into my idea of, well, now we can play multiplayer with big beefy characters.
Yeah.
And it be balanced.
Maybe it's a box set. Maybe it's a box set we just as fans create at some point, and it just becomes like, oh, that sounds like a good way for a Dice Commando to get a lawsuit from FFG.
Right? Yeah, totally. I don't want to hear from the Disney lawyers.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. It'd be Disney.
But yeah, I mean, like, it would just be cool to sit down with Boba Fett. You're playing Boba, I'm playing Palp, somebody's playing Luke Skywalker, and we're just duking it out, and being able to do that would be really fun.
Yeah, I like it. Let's see Han and Luke go at it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, you wouldn't have like Jawa be a big beefy character. They would be, I don't know what you'd call them.
We were talking about that 2 ago. Wicket, 28-point Wicket.
Oh, jeez. 28-point Wicket. He's like massive. He's like Giant Man.
All right, so I'm going to go a little off base here, but I used to play a game in the late 90s called Babylon 5, and it's a very similar game to Destiny, only in that you start with characters in play. So you would start with your ambassador in play, and then you actually got to choose your starting hand, and your starting hand would let you kind of get started. One cool mechanic they had in this was, again, and I think it works because they had starting characters, is over the course of the game, your ambassador or your character could accomplish tasks. They would gain marks, or they would gain points for having done certain things. And then what you could do is you'd have a card in your deck that you would overwrite that character with that would essentially make that character stronger. Right? So I think that would be a very unique mechanic to bring to Destiny, is to, let's say Luke kills a guy, and actually maybe a better example would be Anakin. Right, so you could have like a little tiny Anakin, let's say Anakin now, 1013 Anakin, could then, if he decided to kill somebody, he could upgrade into Darth Vader, or if he decided not to, then he could become Jedi Knight Anakin, or something. I don't want to go into the storyline part of it, right? But
made me think of something.
It kind of helps to kind of tell the story a little bit by evolving the character. So again, I don't know if it'd be broken or not. I could see a huge advantage of dropping a character that significantly changed the health pool. But maybe that's what would actually make 2 characters useful, right? So what were you thinking about?
Oh, no, I was just, that's really exciting. I thought about Pokemon. I don't know if you've ever played Pokemon, but basically characters evolve.
Sure.
So there's an evolution, right? So you start with like the small character, and then, you can build them up into very powerful characters. Right. So I really like that. I think that could be definitely a mechanic that comes with like a base set, where a whole base set has that mechanic, so they can release different versions of different characters throughout the set. So it would be interesting. You'd have to definitely balance out how you would deal with points and like.
Yeah, and that's how I was trying to counter it here, because in this set you had to do certain things. It's not just like you had your guy, because like in Pokemon, as long as you draw your next evolution, you get to play it.
Right. No, right? You need
and in this case, you had to accomplish something. And the one I'm showing now actually was the case where you actually had to pull off like a card combo in order to get the next one evolved, for lack of a better term, right? So it would have to be difficult, and I mean, maybe it wouldn't work from a mechanic. I just think it'd be kind of a cool way to help tell this, because a lot of what this game is about is telling the story, right? So I think that'd be kind of a cool thing.
So you got Farm Boy Luke, and you want him to kind of get to the Return of the Jedi Luke. I think one of the things that would be really frustrating, or part of that could be frustrating, is if you don't get that card combo. So I like the idea of it being an achievement, or like, let's say, he's got a get trained somehow, right? So, or like you said, he has to defeat a character or at least do
Right.
5 damage to somebody, something like that. And then after that point, you can swap into the next character. But I like it.
Yeah. Cool. And then one thing I wanted to talk to you about is I think personally that one of the things that the game could use is an alternate win condition or pathways of alternate win conditions. But I'm really struggling to come up with an idea of what that would look like. There was a discussion on the board, the main Facebook page, maybe a year or so ago, and they were talking about what would, an alternate win condition of building the Death Star look like. And I was kind of thinking like, maybe you'd have to get like 4 or 5 supports in play, and then
like the Transformers where they like combine to form the Death Star. You like.
Yeah, it was like I've got my super laser and I've got my
tracking computer.
Yeah. Or maybe you have to collect so many resources. It wasn't dilithium, it was
Kyber.
Kyber, thank you.
Yeah, Kyber.
You have to collect so many Kyber crystals or something like that. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Do you have any ideas on alternate win conditions?
Yeah, I shout out to my Chico crew, T3 Gaming. We used to talk about alternate win conditions and like building the Death Star. We also came up with a pod racing format that was based on basically resources. You're trying to accumulate a certain amount of resources. Once you reach that point, you either win the game.
What was the number you guys were using to set it? Because I'm assuming that was consistent with the plot, right?
Yeah, I think we
Bunta Classic.
Yeah, I think but that would just give you more resources. But I think we used 15. And it worked out to be about 4 or 5 rounds of play. So you could still do damage, which would shut down a character, but you couldn't actually, just keep them from getting resources. And
so the only way to win was resources?
Yes, exactly. So if you killed a character, what you did is you shut them down from making resources, and then we had a condition where you gained 2 extra resources for
if you killed somebody.
So there's that possible alternate, but I like definitely the idea of a Death Star as like a plot. Crime Lord is kind of an alternate win condition and similar.
I know it's unpopular, but I think reprinting Crime Lord was the right thing to do.
What?
Maybe not as a legendary. But
yeah,
that's a little frustrating.
I think it's an interesting card, and I wish that it could see more play. I think Watto's definitely a good piece of that puzzle, but
Watto Yoda, make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. So, but definitely the condition of defeating a character once you reach something, or maybe like 2 unique characters or something like that it would be really interesting to see happen. So it's not always just beating each other up or milling. You're like you said, building the Death Star, Star Killer base, or maybe it's not always a villain thing.
Oh, I didn't think of Star Killer base.
What about, proton torpedoes into the
destroy the Death Star?
Yeah, you could definitely have a mechanic in a starter set or something where you have, Luke in his X-Wings versus a Death Star and Vader. And,
sure. Yeah, I think you have to be... So, I played the old Decipher game very casually, and part of the reason it was because you needed a dang encyclopedia to play that game, right? And it felt like every expansion was a new mechanic. So I want to make... I'm hoping that Destiny's not going to go down that path.
You don't want it to become too complex.
Yeah, because, if, let's say, I'm playing Gungans, and you're building the Death Star, we're not playing the same game, right? You know what I mean?
And I've heard some complaints that even people with mill are annoyed because there's another win condition. So I could see how some people wouldn't like that. So you don't want to have too many. But I do think that there's a balance to that. Like you could definitely make it happen, where it's not, I think it's interesting to play a game with mill and have a little working towards different things, because otherwise it's just roll out damage, resolve damage, remove dice.
Sure.
It can be a little dry.
I think the main reason people get frustrated with mill isn't necessarily mill as a win condition. It's that mill spends their entire time disrupting what you do. Right? It's the same reason that in Magic people don't like players who play blue. Right? Their entire job is to you're like, all right, I finally got my character in play, and they're like, back to your hand. Right? It's just it just stinks because you're there to further your win condition, whether you win or you lose, and they're disrupting. And that's what mill does. Mill is inherently a negative play experience in that it is disrupting what you're doing. Right. Now that doesn't mean that you have a bad time, and I've played mill. I completely respect mill. That's not where I'm not saying that mill is the most horrible thing in the world. But by definition, it is a negative play experience because it's disrupting what you're trying to do, right?
Sure. And it's keeping, you get all excited to build your deck and you go to the place and you want to play and somebody plays mill and you didn't actually get to use any of the cards. Exactly. So I could see that. But I also I like diversity in my games. If they're too simple, they get boring very fast. So I think that we need different win conditions to make it interesting.
Yeah. So fair enough there. All right. So I think that's pretty much it, except that you mentioned one thing already. You said, well, what about starter decks, right? I think
FFG.
This has only been said a bajillion times before.
I know.
A bajillion times before.
Yeah, we're going to say it again because, new set, they had the opportunity to print new starter decks, and they still gave us, 9 die starter decks without a fully playable deck. It's really sad, and I feel like it's just, I think that right now Destiny needs full playable starter decks that are decent. They can put cards in there that are unique to the starter deck that makes people still buy them.
Sure.
I'm thinking of a $25 starter deck, just like almost every other game has. That's themed, that's playable, that has somewhere around 14 to 15 dice. Because right now you're getting, I think, 9 dice for a $15 starter.
Right.
And
a bunch of other relatively worthless cards.
Yeah, and so now I have to buy 4 starters to get both, and I got 4 of some useless weapon that I don't think, So I think that it would be great for newer players. Let us know, in the comments if you guys agree. But I think almost everybody
I don't think you're
agrees.
going to get a lot of hate on that one.
Yeah.
So let me counter you, right? Because we have to, I think, accept what FFG's business model is in terms of making you buy the starters. And really, it's going to have to boil down to total number of sales. So what if instead I propose a 2-player starter with fully elite characters for $60?
See, that's too high.
But it's the same price as a board game.
It is, but I think that it's because it's part of a CCG, and this is the goal of FFG, is to hook you and get you into playing more. That they don't want to release a board game that's kind of all enclosed. I feel like a starter deck is like, you can't play the starter by yourself. If you play,
right, but doesn't that make it not a starter deck? I guess that's my argument.
Yeah, that's the difference between a 2-player starter and just a single starter, right? But I feel like it's like, well, I love blues. I want to play Luke Skywalker, so I'm only going to buy the Luke deck, and I'm excited to get into this game, so I want to buy the Boba deck, I don't want both sides, but I mean they could do both, but I think that price point of $25 to $30 is that sweet spot. In the game
fair enough. So you don't think a 2-player for because what were we paying for the 2-player starter was $30 MSRP?
I felt like it was $40 original. Was it $29.99 first, maybe?
I don't know. Somebody will correct
it was
this,
it was like $60 to get.
I think it was $29.95 or whatever.
I think you're right.
MSRP. And that was you needed 2 of them. So that's $60. So if you think if they could come up with a product for $50, do you think people would buy it?
Yeah, I think that might be a better price point.
$49.95.
Yeah, but think about this from the gamer in the shop. They're just hanging out. They're playing Magic or some other game, and they're excited to see this, and they don't want to spend a lot of money. They just want to try it out, but they want to jump in and start playing.
But you can't. I guess that's the problem is you can't try it out with the starter deck.
You can't. That's the problem is if you don't know anything about the game, you can't buy 2 and try to combine them. You'll have no idea what, there's no instructions.
Yeah.
You want to be able to just pick it up off the pack, open it up, rip it open, and start playing. Have a, you've got the events.
You think the sweet spot for that's $25?
I think it's got to be under 30, and I know Pokemon decks are $20 or something like that. So it's got to, with the dice.
Well, the Pokemon theme decks are $12.95. I see them in Fred Meyer all the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So well then it's even cheaper. So.
Yeah, and I guess that's part of the.
I think you're going to get a lot newer players if you had that.
The starter decks as they exist today are really theme decks if you think about it, right? And I guess I'm hearkening back to the early days when I first started buying cards and a starter deck was basically a 60-card booster pack is really the way it worked, right? So theme decks really took it to the next level. They were a little more expensive. I don't even think starter decks in that fashion exist today. Probably for the reason that you couldn't necessarily pick it up and start playing in any competent manner.
But
there's a premium with that. So I mean, I think people are willing to play a premium for the constructed deck. It is very interesting with the dice. I actually feel for FFG from a logistics standpoint because of the dice menu. I feel for them, but only to a certain point. At some point they need to give us a sellable product. right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, definitely dice construction is probably quite expensive and difficult to deal with, but
Well, and just, I mean, think about just the size and shipping and stuff, right?
weight.
I mean, so.
Yeah. But like even in other games, starter decks aren't great, right? I mean, like I don't think in any game, Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, have the starter decks are really strong. So they don't have to be really strong, but they should have like one or two cards that are very good, and then
They accomplished that. The Grievous starter is actually pretty good.
It is actually Grievous starter, thumbs up. It's very well done. But again, like, there are pieces of that you if you built it with two of them, it works really well together, and it would just be better to have it that way.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's an investment in newer players. You're not maybe making as much money up front, but in the end, you're going to make way more money because you have more players, player base. So.
Well, that would be the hope. So, all right. So, do you have any other ideas you wanted to throw out? Otherwise, I think we're probably. I know I'm out of ideas.
No, we could go on and on about ideas, but I think this is a good start. And just again, these are just ideas. It's fun to bat around ideas. We'd love to hear your comments and stuff. These are not like written in any kind of.
Yeah,
we didn't put, like, a lot
these
of
need to
time
be in
in
the
these.
next set or we're out. Right?
Except for Riposte, get that in there.
Yeah, actually, I mean that card does need to come back, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually our viewer question, is which we expect to get tons of responses, both positive and negative, right? What mechanics do you think would benefit the game? Again, please try to steer clear of dream cards. That's not really where we're going here, because again, if we were like, let's say in Magical Fairyland, we were going to go and make a business proposal to FFG tomorrow on what cards we wanted. They're not going to want to hear any of your dream cards,
no,
right? They're interested
not.
in mechanics for 3 sets down the road, right? So anyway, that's really the viewer question, so let us know what you think. I really want to thank Symbio for coming today, and again, please check out his channel on YouTube. He's I think the largest subscriber, or I think you have the largest subscriber base of all the in real life Destiny games.
I'd say with the in real life for sure.
Or I should say actually of, I think, all of the YouTube content providers. I know that for sure.
Right.
I don't know what the podcasters are at.
Well, we've been around the longest and stuck it out pretty much, and we're pretty consistent. So and we definitely love our viewership. So thank you guys for all the support and love. Thank you for having me, man. It's been a lot
absolutely.
of fun.
Yeah,
Hopefully
so
we'll do it again sometime.
If you like what we're doing here, and if you enjoy our episodes, please like and subscribe. Mike always says, he's not here today, Mike always says hit that bell. Again, remember the bell and subscribe are two different things, so please do them both. The bell will give you the notifications. The subscribe makes us feel happy. Also, do you have anything else?
Happy May the 4th be with you.
Happy May the 4th,
that's
right.
Revenge of the 5th.
I had never heard that before.
Oh, really?
I had never heard that before, so I guess that's embarrassing. But all right, if nothing else, go Commando.
Go Commando.